Greetings, beautiful souls. I have a very special treat for you today. I'm about to do an interview with my gorgeous sister, Saber, who's living in Paris. There she is. Hi, babe. We're going to bring her on in just a minute. Yeah, she's coming on live. We're going to have the chats. Let's see if this works. Yes. This is the plan. This is the plan. We got Saber in Paris coming on live. We're going to have some Freedopreneur chats right now. Here she comes. Yeah, babe, we got this.
I was like,
oh, we got it. We got it. The full moon is with us. Yoo! Hi, Saber.
hi. Oh my gosh. Yay, we figured it out.
So exciting. So everybody, we're going to have a really exciting chat right now. This is my beautiful friend Saber, who lives in my favorite city in the entire fucking world. She lives in Paris. She just fucking picked up and moved on over there, and because she can. And so we're going to have a talk about freedom and all the things that make life juicy that we are both getting to enjoy because we are making some really good decisions in our lives.
Yeah, and it's so funny because now we're on your page, and I was gonna host and interview you, but now we're in. Do you want to still do that in the style where we're doing I'm interviewing you, or should we just have a conversation and a banter?
I don't know. Let's go with the flow. You can interview me on my page. Sure, why not?
Okay.
Let's do it.
Because you can, right? And this is where you
do whatever we want.
You.
That's the fucking message here is you get to do whatever the fuck you want and when you have a life like we have designed, right? So we can do whatever we want. We can be spontaneous. We can go with the flow. I know you wanted to ask me some questions and I always like talking about me, don't we all? So whatever you want, babe.
Well, what I wanted to intro for my audience, because I know a lot of people don't know you yet on my side, but for you, I thought it was really amazing that we both come from the world of creative entrepreneurship and like the nomadic community, the spiritual entrepreneurs, you know, burners, festival goers. A lot of us relied on things like gig work or being flown out to different events and workshops and retreats and things like that. Yeah. So we both have turned this automated high-ticket affiliate marketing model into this turn your passions to profit, but without the burnout. You know, because for us, we realized, okay, like what's retirement going to look like for us? What is really our exit plan? Why are our passions now actually becoming our burnout? That's not, do we have to just accept that as a reality? And unfortunately, I think a lot of people in that world do. You know, a lot of people in that world, they just do accept that as the reality. And for us, we obviously are not meant to. We're unemployable by even like our looks alone, right? And I think for a lot of people, they get quite skeptical about alternative ways to make an income online these days. But today, like in 2024, now oh my God, we're going into 2025. Isn't that crazy?
It's so exciting.
It's so exciting. Because today it's really recognizing that everybody has to have some type of asset that they're building in the digital space. Like even dentists and doctors have their Instagram pages with their testimonials these days. You know, the world is actually fully moving online.
Yeah.
So I just love that we bridge that gap between people who are in that nomadic, in that spiritual community to really having a new way to turn our passions to profit. So I wanted to just ask you to just share with our audience, like, what was your experience when you actually found our space, found our community, found our platform, found the systems and everything that's really available here? What was your process like? Where were you at in your life? What were you doing for money at the time? And what was your experience like getting to meet this particular business model? Like your skepticism, maybe your resistances, like what actually came up for you?
Yeah, well, for me, it was, you know, I was at a place where I had been traveling already for a couple of years. And prior to that, I had been teaching yoga. I had done so many things as a serial entrepreneur. I, you know, started as a photographer, then I had a fashion line for 10 years. Then I did my yoga training. I actually was an activist for a handful of years, which I make no money doing that, of course. But, you know, always been very purpose driven. So that was like feeding my soul, but not my bank account. And, you know, then I started doing coaching and I was teaching, I was traveling festivals and teaching about conscious eating and health and wellness and trying to do online courses. And I really thought that the online courses was going to be my bread and butter when I started traveling in 2017, right at the beginning of 2017. And I was trying to do retreats, but I was struggling with all of it. And I really felt like I was throwing spaghetti against the wall. And I remember being in India, and I made a little flyer of all my services, right? And it was like chakra balancing and, you know, private yoga sessions and, you know, all the things all the talents that I had accumulated. But it was just like all this low ticket hustle stuff and like trying to get enough clients to actually, you know, not only to find them, but to book them, to deliver the service, to get paid. Like it was like wearing all of those hats for so little money. I just came to a point where it wasn't sustainable. And I was like, okay, I'm not having enough income. And found myself in India at one point, you know, teaching yoga classes for like, you know, $7 a class or something, and living in this shitty little $5 a day room with the shower right over the toilet. And I was just like, oh, you know, and my daughter texted me, and she was 21 at the time. She says, Mom, you know, I need some money for food. Can you send me $50 for groceries? And I was like, no, I can't, because I don't even have it for myself. And that was like a wake up call for me. And I was like, this is not okay. You know, there's got to be a better way. And shortly after that, I found myself in Mexico, sleeping on my friend's couch, and really trying to, you know, I went there, supposed to be getting a job at a yoga studio, and that fell through when I got there. And there was just like nothing in the pipeline. I had to cancel a retreat because I didn't have enough people signed up. And it was just like throwing spaghetti against the wall. Nothing was sticking. Had the online course and thought I was going to be, you know, had this vision that I was going to be waking up, you know, wherever in the world with like sales going while I was sleeping, and like my master class, you know, or whatever, my online course just selling itself. And it did, none of that was happening. And so I was like, something's got to give. And I literally said a prayer to the universe. And I was like, how, you know, show me aligned ways to make money. I'm not going to sell my soul. I'm, like you say, unemployable. For sure I was unemployable. I had even gotten to a point in the past where I actually did fill out applications and like send them in. And I never got a single interview. Just not employable. And just like, and also wasn't willing to give up any of my freedom. You know, I was already traveling. I was like, I'm not going to like go back and live somewhere and get a job and work for somebody else, building somebody else's dreams. It's just like not an option. And that's when, you know, I literally said a prayer to the universe. And then sure enough, I saw a Facebook post of a friend of mine talking about this amazing space. And I was like, I leaned in. I was like, what is that? And she sent me a masterclass. And she's like, yeah, there's an amazing community full of people like us. And I was like, bullshit, impossible. There's people like us, like, no, like conscious, cool people like us online. Dude, no, I don't believe that. And so I watched a masterclass, and literally by the end of it, I was like, okay, it's a hallelujah moment, because this is exactly what I just prayed for like 2 days ago. This is it. And then skepticism, you know, came in. I was like, wait a minute, it's got to be a scam, because it was like the whole "it's too good to be true" thing. I was like, this cannot be like ticking all the boxes. Like I can't believe that's true. And so I did go back and forth a little bit, and like was like, it's got to be a scam. And then I was just checking, you know, doing my due diligence and checking in, and everything I checked in was like, no, real deal. Yep, no, go for it. And so I was like, okay, took a deep breath and friggin' jumped off the cliff. And you know, here I am now, 4+ years later, and living in my absolute. I'll just give you a little view. Actually, my dream villa in Bali. Like this is my view right now. Right? This is like where I live. And see that? This is my world now. You know, I live in my dream villa in Bali. I just, you know, my daughter, who I didn't have $50 to send, you know, those years ago. Now I just had her here with me, actually traveling around Asia for 8 months. And we just went all over the place, and I treated her like a queen and bought her all the things that I could never buy her before. And like really made up for, I feel like, raising her in scarcity and lack, you know. And so it's like, it's like a whole new paradigm I'm living in now. And, you know, you and I have chats now about buying castles, because that's been a dream for both of us. And it's just like, it's such a different paradigm. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit.
Wow. I almost teared up when you talked about your daughter, because I think that's just such a big deal. I think especially for women, there's so many women that are waiting for the right man to come and save them, or to take over the burden and all these kinds of things. And I remember what it felt like to make flyers of all of my talents and all my things, and put my phone number, and just like really try and put myself out there. And when I really would calculate how it all made sense after traveling to the place and just doing my due diligence to do everything on the back end, right? It never added up and it never made sense. And it just, even if people are successful in those type of models, if they're doing courses and they start really hitting it off with courses, I always talk about where it's like, okay, things can be short-lived or they could be sustainable, because the model that you're with also matters. Even if you love what you do,
Yeah.
even if you love teaching yoga, even if you're making $100 an hour from it, even if you love teaching yoga, you're not going to love teaching yoga when you need to just take a break from life, or when you recognize you're like, hey, I want to, I don't know, try martial arts instead, or like whatever it is, right? Your life changes, life happens, and you need something where you're going to really allow yourself to sustain yourself. And for us, we're also coming from this background of not coming from money. So we're actually deprogramming a lot of scarcity stuff. And that also comes from like managing money and learning how to build wealth and these kinds of things. And what I'm learning in actual wealth building is, man, even $10,000 a month is like not enough for a lot of people. Like after you think about the typical American dream, let's say, after your car, after the kids, after the house and these kinds of things, and then the wedding people go into, and the school debts, and then paying for the kids' school and all these things. $10,000 a month is like you have like barely anything to have left over, unless you're like putting a little bit around for retirement. But those kinds of models, I mean, you're going to get your money 40 years later,
Right.
versus like, I really believe that the people who take the bigger risks are the people who make bigger money, like quicker wins for bigger risks. Now, quicker wins doesn't necessarily mean like a good thing, right? Because this is not a quick get rich quick scheme, but it is high ticket, where people's first sale can be almost $3,000. And I think that with a lot of people, you felt like you jumped out of the plane, like you took that risk, that feeling of making a decision in business, you don't have when you are in your comfort zone, right? Like maybe you had that when you got your first client from your flyer that you put out, but it's not as big of that risk that you feel, but you've had way bigger wins than you've ever had. So what can you say to anybody who feels that this risk piece, like getting around the mindset of the risk piece, because let's be real, especially if you don't come from money and you're so used to trading your time for money, what can you say to the person who feels like it's risky to do something that you don't know when it's going to make a return, that seems like it's a higher return, but could be you could not have your first sale in your first year in entrepreneurship, right? It's like, but what would you say to the person to shift their mindset to really be bold enough to say yes to something like that?
Well, a couple things are coming up. One is, if we look at any kind of traditional brick and mortar business, right? It's minimum 100K investment to get that started, and then 3 to 5 years average before you turn a profit. And those businesses generally are out of business within 2 years or so, right? Most of them, like the gross majority of traditional businesses are, if they turn a profit, it's 3 to 5 years, and most of them go out of business before they even get to that. So what we need to be looking at is sustainable, scalable models for passive income, which is what we're working with, right? And in terms of getting started and getting past the fear of getting started, is like, go big or go home, like go high ticket or go home. Because when you talk about like, getting paid $100 an hour to teach a yoga class, it's like, that is so little money to me now. 5 years ago, that felt like, oh, that's money, or like $10,000 a month. Wow, if I could make $10,000 a month, that would be a game changer, and it has been, right? Has totally been a game changer. But like you say, now that's such a small amount. So it's like, and if you look at something like, if we just, stay with that number of $10,000, right? If that's the investment, that amount of money is like, that's not enough to actually ruin your life, but it's enough to invest to actually keep you committed to the process, right? It's like, you're not going to flush that down the toilet. So you're going to show up and actually do the thing. But it's not so much money that if it didn't work out, it wouldn't like ruin your life. right? So it's actually like a really comfortable, if you want to be a business person, if you want to, which I didn't want to be a business person for a long time. I was just like, I don't